Hello, Meoni here, and welcome to my summary of the 58th letter from the producer live. In this live letter today, broadcast on the 24th of April 2020, they decided to feature the first part of a two-part live letter series looking at the preview of patch 5.3, and essentially they go through a lot of the features that are introduced in 5.3 in this live letter. There was more than we expected, so without further ado, let's go through this. Firstly, it's worth talking about that they were sympathizing with the people affected in the current world situation. They read out a very heartwarming and touching account written in from just one of the many fans who have written in to stress the importance of the Final Fantasy XIV servers and their ability to talk with people. So I think we can all collectively say that thank you, Square Enix, for keeping this game running, because without which we would be pretty much the most bored people in the universe. So yeah, hats off to Square Enix. So apparently 5.3 was first supposed to release in mid-June. However, that will not happen. They say it was about 70% finished in their production schedule before the work from home order came from Square Enix. And obviously they had to shift gears and try to work from home. The voice acting for 5.3 was actually done by voice actors in their own homes and home studios. That actually got completed, so thankfully we do have voice acting for this next patch, and essentially it's been a pretty interesting set of hurdles to overcome technically. Obviously they have the software to install on home computers and their home networks are pretty slow, so it's been quite interesting to hear the accounts this morning of how Yoshi P has been stressing that the delays are pretty much something they can't avoid. So basically, they're working hard to get this done, and apparently it will be released somewhere maybe a month later than planned. So currently, if it was scheduled to be released in June, then we're looking at sometime in July. I would wager the sort of later half of July, maybe even August, and obviously they cannot nail down a specific release date or indeed nail it to that month exactly, because they're in the realms of the unknown with the current world situation, and things are relying on so many things that are out of their control. So what is coming in 5.3 when we eventually get this? And I'm fingers crossed for that July release. So firstly is the 24-player Alliance raid content in 5.3. They're working pretty hard at behind the scenes testing on it currently, and that will be in the patch as expected. The current hurdle with that is that they're talking about the fact that they're having issues getting everybody connected at the same time, like 24 people outside of the office connecting to a development server to test it. So that's currently in sort of like QA, and hopefully that'll get fixed in time for the patch. They do, however, reveal what it's called. Apparently it's going to be called the Puppet's Bunker, and there's some nice new artwork there. If you've ever played Nier Automata, then you'll recognize that crashed space station, but you'll be wondering exactly why that's there, which is quite a surprise. We thought this, including myself, thought this was going to be the carnival part from Nier, but apparently it's going to be the Puppet's Bunker, so I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, that's fantastic looking art. Next, we move into the realms of the MSQ, and briefly they show this art of the Exarch there with the crystalline vessel, which was talked about in more recent storyline if you followed along with it. And this is the new official art for the 5.3, and the patch will be titled Reflections in Crystal. So apparently on this MSQ slide, they're talking about how 5.3 will see the conclusion of the Shadowbringers storyline. They note that you must complete the Crystal Tower questline now to actually go forward with this questline, and the My Little Chocobo questline as well. Those are actually the prerequisites. So complete the Crystal Tower questline to its completion. Obviously, that's all the raids and all the quests involved in that, and to have a mount unlocked. So there's more information later as to why My Little Chocobo needs to be completed. We'll come to that quite shortly. So next up in 5.3 will be a new dungeon. This will be in the MSQ, and this will be called the Hero's Gauntlet. This will be trust system compatible. They didn't show pretty much anything off about this, apart from one image which looks a little bit like the border of Lakeland, maybe Ilmeg, somewhere there. Kind of reminded me a little bit like Holminster Switch, just slightly. Also in 5.3, we're getting a brand new beast tribe. This will be the dwarves. These will be crafting specific only. So we got the gathering specific one, but previously. Now we're getting the dwarf one, which will be crafting only, so that should keep people busy with that. Personally, I was hoping for a combat one, but, there's still time, isn't there? So next up, we have a new story for the Sorrow of Whirlite questline. So this is the stuff we last saw with Ruby Weapon. This will be a new story-focused instanced encounter. However, they note here that this will not be a trial, which is quite a shocker. They put all the cost apparently into the main story this time around, and therefore this Sorrow of Whirlite will not have a trial. That doesn't necessarily mean there won't be a trial eventually to complete the featured boss, which they show an image of here, which appears to me to be Sapphire Weapon, but just not in this patch cycle. They do, however, say we are getting a separate trial, which is to do with the MSQ. And if the storyline's anything to go by, I'm pretty much guessing that this might be Elidibus at this point. I could be completely wrong. You also get an extreme version of this as well here, as they're listing, with obviously no information given, and they're not releasing the name of it. But obviously we want to try and do a bit of speculation. He says it will be the final battle of the Shadowbringers story, and Yoshi says it won't be easy to predict this boss. So start your speculation now with your tinfoil hats. Personally, I'm looking forward to fighting some different form of Elidibus or something, but we'll have to wait and see who the true boss is at the end of this expansion. Very exciting indeed. Next up, they briefly mention job adjustments for both PvE and PvP, which they're going to be talking about in the next part of the live letter. So whenever they do that, in a couple of weeks or something, or a month, in that next live letter instead. So there will be changes to PvP and PvE, which is to be expected. They just want to sort of gloss over it for now. The next step of the Resistance Weapon Saga, so your relic weapons, will be included in this cycle. There'll be a large-scale instance known as the Bosjan Southern Front. So apparently this is basically Eureka, which makes me very excited. Some of you might be sighing at this point. Personally, I love Eureka. It is what it is. They do say it will be like Eureka with 100 players in this battlefield, but the content will be completely different, apparently. That's their exact quote, and that's the translation there in that quote. More actions will be usable inside the instance itself exclusively, so think the logogram system, so something like that will be returning. But they do say here that you will, however, have two choices. You do not have to do the Bosjan Southern Front at all for that next part of the relic. In fact, you'll have something external that they're not talking about right now, and both will have that mandatory story running through. This is the future-proofing I was asking for Eureka, and thankfully we're getting it for this. However, obviously, maybe the Bosjan Southern Front will have some unique rewards that will make it more interesting, but it does mean in the future when nobody does it, you'll still be able to get this relic, which is really good, positive news. So next up, we have Crafter and Gatherer content. They'll have a new thing called Trial Synthesis. This is the ability to trial a recipe without actually needing materials. That'll be in the 5.3 series. It will now also be possible, they say, to search for recipes from items you have in your inventory. So you can search for stuff you can actually make with items you have acquired, which is a pretty nice quality of life thing in my opinion. There will also be a new custom delivery client, they don't name, coming in the 5.3 series, if you like turn-ins. Apparently there will also be a change to the collectible system in general, which now has a set list of items applicable for turn-in exclusively. Next up, they talk about the next part of the Ishgard restoration will be in this patch cycle as well. The Sky Builder rankings will be open once again, with live updates on, obviously, all the tracking websites that they have on the Lodestone. You'll have new items that you can gather and craft counting towards that score, and the top ranked players will once again get unique achievements and titles, which I would definitely advise you going for. They're actually a lot easier to go for than I expected. Even I have one, which is quite scary, to be honest. I did that without even realizing. New stages for the Crafter and Gatherer relics is also in this, so they're the Sky Steel tools. So if you're looking forward to upgrading them, you can once again enjoy that in this patch. So yeah, pretty exciting. Now we move on to some real meat and potatoes of this. So A Realm Reborn gets its revamp. This has long been rumored for a long time, but this is much greater than even I ever expected. So you have a new MSQ sort of streamlined storyline that includes 2.0 all the way up to 2.5 patches. So that's quite a lot of the bit that most people have problems with, the new players. It's a little bit long. This apparently removes some of the running around and the odd pre-quests that are required. Yoshi says about 13% of the quests were completely taken away from the game in this revamp. There are a lot of quests, he says, that did introduce new NPCs, so they had to actually keep those in regardless. However, they did take away a lot of the steps in those quests usually needed to complete them, so a lot of the running around and doing silly objectives is presumably gone. In general, there are less quests, much easier to complete, and less time investment, allowing you to get further in a game faster, which I think in general is a good idea. They have also added more experience points as rewards from these quests. So if you're, hovering on level 46 and you've not done any side quests, no longer will you have to worry about that. New players will be able to get to level 50 from just the MSQ alone, which is quite a nice positive change. This is the big one, old zone flying. Yes, you heard me correctly. Now you can actually fly in all A Realm Reborn areas, apparently. To be eligible for this flying, you have to complete the Ultimate Weapon main storyline. So that's not particularly difficult. There will also not be ether currents. They do stress this because people were wondering whether or not this was going to be quite a painful thing to have to do. The ether currents were not included, and they made a point of mentioning that, so you don't have to worry about that. Essentially, all you do is you do your MSQ quest, complete the ultimate weapon part of that, which is just from doing the Castrum series, and then essentially have, unlocked your chocobo, and you should be able to fly straight away. Because of this, the quest line I Believe I Can Fly in Ishgard is actually now just completely removed from the game, so you won't have that to look forward to either. You just basically get flying when you complete that quest. There are two caveats to this change, however, that they mention. Some terrain in the world of A Realm Reborn that you could usually climb, they're not specific in this, so certain rocks or something will become unclimbable because of this for some reason, because there's a few changes to the old world that they've done, both texture-wise and, placement-wise, and the barriers and stuff like that they've had to put in for the sky limit and stuff like that. And also water will not be enterable with mounts like it is in the other expansions, which is, fairly understandable, really, when it comes down to it. It's not something we expected. But apart from that, you can pretty much fly anywhere in A Realm Reborn, which is quite a surprising, quite shocking, and quite rewarding thing to look forward to. They show off a slide here called Unreal Trials next, and Faux Hollows, which is a really exciting feature I want to talk about, with a weird fox dude here on Chloe's desk in Idleshire. So this is mentioned to be a new trial difficulty, yes. So it'll be Unreal mode, so you have normal, extreme, and Unreal. And this features a new minigame that they don't show off, where you can get rewards from it, presumably. It says that you can battle primals leveled up and synced to level 80. Interesting. They're talking about adding one trial per patch, so the first will actually be Shiva on Unreal difficulty. This is also a limited time event on this difficulty, so presumably they're going to rotate through these in the future. So if you're familiar with World of Warcraft, where you can revisit the old raids and stuff with time walking, it's basically that. They're basically saying there'll be limited time events and limited time rewards, presumably, which is quite exciting to me personally. Apparently, it won't just be an upgrade of the Extreme to just level 80 with, your level 80 abilities. They're actually reworking the fights. They're actually reworking the fights for this mode, which is really exciting. This is going to be really awesome. They say Titan will be basically Savage difficulty. So I guess this is something else I can do with my static. Really looking forward to that, indeed. So every time apparently you complete one of these trials, you get a chance to play the Hollows minigame every week, which they don't show a slide off or any information on at the minute. Depending on how you do, they say, will change the rewards you get. So is this speedrun? Is it timed? Do you get more chance of better rewards if you don't die? It's going to be interesting to find out. There's no information on that yet, or even what the minigame does, only that we have to do this Unreal mode, and then we get a chance every week to maybe spin a roulette or something. I don't know. Maybe they've taken the idea of a scratch card minigame from Ishgard Restoration and realized how addictive that is and put it into something like this. Either way, I'm very excited for that. There's no information on how long those limited time events will be at the minute, but I think you'll agree there's lots of questions to be asked and quite a lot of excitement to go with that feature. So let's move on to miscellaneous updates now then. These are actually quite important as well. You can now, as of this patch, join a party with a party of players. So if you have 3 people in your party and another party starts for the same thing, you can actually apply to join their party with your party. You don't have to, leave it and have to join them one by one. You can just straight up apply to join, which is really nice. That's happened more times than I'd like to admit. And occasionally in the past, you might have like a trial you're trying to do. You have 3 people or 2 people, and you join that and you disband your party, and then by the time you join, your friend can't join because it's already filled. So that should alleviate that problem and be less hassle and better quality of life overall. Also is the option to require 1 player per job will be added to Party Finder, so you can just tick a button, and obviously there will be a limited amount of one player per job, so you don't have multiples, so we actually get the full benefits of the limit break system, which is a plus from me, a big thumbs up. And players will now be able to use the world visit system whilst in a cross-world party. That's a nice one as well. Another quality of life change that most people will gloss over, but I think is quite important. There will also be new chapters for New Game Plus added to the game, presumably for A Realm Reborn. There will also be new token exchange vendors added to major cities, so much less running around. Presumably that means stuff like, tokens that you get for upgrading Shire gear, stuff like that. Maybe that'll be what they're talking about, but that should be good. There'll be a new menu added to the game for parasols, so you don't just have them stuck in the extras menu like they currently are as of the live servers. This was apparently a temporary thing they just added to just put parasols in, and they're tidying it up as they promised. And presumably that means we might get some more parasols in the future. I can't wait for those. And that's pretty much it for the 5.3 preview part 1 and the 58 letter from the producer live. Awesome stuff in general. I'm massively excited for 5.3 now. I was a little bit apprehensive, and the cycle of content this brings. Now, obviously, not everything I've talked about will be in 5.3. It'll be in 5.3, 5.32, 5.35, and etc., or whatever patch cycle they want to go with. It won't be in just one patch, so that you won't be overwhelmed. You'll have plenty of content spread out throughout that time, and hopefully this comes out in July. Let me know below what you're most excited for this lovely bounty of content I personally didn't expect. Are you excited as much as I am for Eureka 2.0? Or perhaps you're more excited as all heck for the new level 80 versions of all primals. That should be fun. I want to know what time-limited rewards we can get. If it's anything like the time walking, it should be fun. I'm looking forward to minions and mounts personally. Let me know below. Enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy your weekend. And I'll see you all next time. Very excited. Oh, can't wait.